Most people wander through life blind, fooled by others, trapped by their emotions, and predictable to anyone with half a brain, but not you, not after today. Because the problem we solve here is simple. The world is full of sharks, and you're tired of being the bait. So let me teach you how to think like a phantom, move like a mastermind, and see the unseen, just as Arsène Lupin would. Imagine stepping into a room and knowing more in the first 5 seconds than everyone who's been there for an hour. That is the quiet power of true observation. Most people glance, but a dangerously smart mind studies. The tilt of a chin reveals confidence or insecurity. The twitch of a hand betrays a lie. The rhythm of footsteps tells you who's nervous, who's powerful, and who's pretending to be both. Observation is not about staring harder. It's about seeing what others don't even register. It's about noticing the hesitations between words, the mismatch between someone's tone and their expression, the subtle pattern in their choices that reveals the truth they'll never speak aloud. And here's the part most people never understand. The world is constantly broadcasting information. Nothing is truly hidden, only unnoticed. The way someone holds their glass at a party, the way they check their phone during a conversation, the way their eyes shift before answering a question. These tiny fragments form a map, a blueprint of their intentions, weaknesses and desires. To observe is to read people like open books, while they still believe their pages are sealed. Arsène Lupin understood this better than anyone. He watched the world with elegant precision, gathering secrets without ever asking for them, turning details into advantage and advantage into victory. When you sharpen your eyes, you stop being surprised by life, because everything you need to know is already right in front of you, waiting for you to notice it. Most people are ruled by their emotions, dragged through life by impulses they barely understand. But the moment you learn to command your emotions, instead of being commanded by them, you elevate yourself above the ordinary. Picture a heated argument, tension rising like steam. One person snaps, another panics, someone else shuts down completely. But you, calm, steady, unreadable, become the most powerful person in the room. Because while they drown in their reactions, you are free to think, to choose, to direct the outcome without ever raising your voice. Emotion is not the enemy. Uncontrolled emotion is. Anger can fuel focus when shaped correctly. Fear can sharpen instincts instead of paralyzing them. Desire can become motivation rather than manipulation. Arsène Lupin understood this intimately. He knew that a composed mind could disguise chaos, and a single well-calculated expression could bend a situation in his favor. Control doesn't mean suppressing what you feel. It means mastering the timing, the intensity, the display, when to reveal a hint of vulnerability, when to flash confidence, when to stay completely neutral. Most people reveal everything the moment they feel something. Their face gives them away, their tone cracks, their decisions crumble. But when you own your emotions with quiet precision, you become unpredictable. You become someone who can walk into pressure and remain untouched. Someone who can influence without force. Someone who no longer reacts but responds with intention. Emotion becomes a tool, subtle, sharp, and devastatingly effective when wielded with intelligence. Life is not a straight line, it's a chessboard, and every person you meet is making moves whether they realize it or not. The dangerously smart don't wait to see what happens, they predict what happens next. Thinking 3 moves ahead is not about paranoia, it's about positioning. It's the quiet discipline of seeing the consequences before they unfold, of understanding motives before they're spoken, of preparing answers to questions that haven't yet been asked. When you master this, you stop reacting to life and start orchestrating it. Imagine someone tries to deceive you. Most people catch the lie only after the damage is done. But you saw the shift in their tone, the inconsistency in their story, the strange urgency in their request. You anticipated the intention before the action. Arsène Lupin thrived on this principle. He didn't simply enter a situation, he entered the future of that situation. He knew which guard would turn left, which guest would grow suspicious, which opportunity would open like an unlocked door, and he knew it because he trained himself to think beyond the moment. Thinking ahead means asking yourself, if I say this, what will they say next? If I refuse this offer, what options appear? If I step back now, where can I strike later? It turns every scenario into a map of possibilities, rather than a maze of confusion. Most people are trapped in the present, reacting impulsively, blind to the ripple effect of their own decisions. But when you see the chain reaction before it begins, when you understand not just the move but the aftermath, you gain the rare power to shape outcomes instead of being shaped by them. Silence is one of the most misunderstood forms of power. People rush to fill it, to escape the discomfort, to prove themselves with words that spill out faster than their thoughts. But those who are dangerously smart know that silence is not emptiness. It is a trap, a mirror, a stage, and a weapon all at once. When you stay silent at the right moment, you shift the pressure onto the other person. They begin revealing more than they intended, exposing insecurities, desires, motives. Silence makes them wrestle with their own thoughts while you watch with calm precision. Arsène Lupin used silence like a velvet glove, soft enough to seem harmless, yet firm enough to control the pace of any interaction. When confronted, he didn't rush to defend himself. He waited. He observed the tremble in a voice, the flicker of doubt in someone's eyes. Silence made his opponents uncomfortable, unsure, desperate to fill the void with explanations that only served his advantage. And the beauty is, silence always reveals something important. A liar grows flustered. A manipulator becomes impatient. A guilty conscience cracks under its own weight. When you choose silence, you reclaim control of the moment. Conversations bend around you instead of dragging you along. You force others to show their hand first, to reveal intentions they never meant to share. Most people speak to be heard. The dangerously smart wait to understand. Silence sharpens your perception, amplifies the truth, and gives you the luxury of choosing your next move with intention rather than impulse. In a world addicted to noise, the quietest person often becomes the one with the most power. There is a certain elegance in holding back, in revealing only fragments while the world tries to guess the rest. Most people believe that honesty means oversharing, that transparency is a virtue, that the more they explain themselves, the more trustworthy they appear. But the dangerously smart understand the opposite. The less you reveal, the more control you have. When people don't know your intentions, they can't predict your actions. When they can't predict your actions, they can't stop you. Mystery isn't deception, it's strategy. Arsène Lupin mastered this art effortlessly. He walked into every room with a smile that hinted at 1,000 secrets, never showing more than he wanted anyone to see. His charm was disarming, but his silence was deliberate. He gave people just enough to feel comfortable, just enough to underestimate him, just enough to believe they understood him. And that illusion, that carefully crafted fog, was his greatest advantage, because while they were busy guessing his motives, he was already 3 steps ahead, moving freely in the space their assumptions had granted him. Most people reveal their plans the moment they're excited, expose their fears the moment they're pressured, and confess their weaknesses the moment they're challenged. They hand over their power piece by piece without even realizing it. But when you choose to hold your cards close, your ambitions, your emotions, your strategies, you create a barrier no one can cross. You become the quiet storm people sense but can't decipher. You become someone others talk about, but never truly understand. And anything that cannot be understood cannot be controlled. There is a brilliant kind of power hidden inside what others call weakness. Most people spend their lives trying to hide their flaws, defend their insecurities, or overcompensate for the parts of themselves they fear make them vulnerable. But the dangerously smart see weakness differently, not as something to erase, but as something to shape, something to transform into a disguise, so convincing that the world never notices the strength behind it. When people underestimate you, they reveal everything, carelessly, confidently, believing you pose no threat. And that miscalculation becomes your greatest advantage. Arsène Lupin understood this better than anyone. He wore personas the way others wore coats, lightly, effortlessly, strategically. If he needed access, he became harmless. If he needed information, he became forgettable. If he needed to slip past suspicion, he became ordinary. People lower their guard the moment they believe they have the upper hand, and Lupin used that moment as his doorway. Weakness, when performed with intention, is camouflage. It lets you walk through rooms unnoticed, hear conversations unfiltered, observe without resistance. The truth is, appearing strong invites competition, scrutiny, and challenge. Appearing weak invites opportunity. When you pretend you don't know, people teach you. When you act like you don't notice, people relax. When you downplay your abilities, people expose theirs. Every weakness, real or crafted, can be reshaped into an opening. It's not about deception for the sake of ego. It's about positioning yourself where information flows freely, where doors open easily, where advantages appear naturally. The world pays attention to the loud and underestimates the quiet, and that simple imbalance becomes the perfect stage for someone who knows how to turn fragility into a strategic mask. People believe they are mysterious, complex, impossible to read. Yet most walk around broadcasting their desires, fears, and intentions with every word, every gesture, every choice they make. The dangerously smart don't just listen to what people say, they listen to what people mean. They read the subtext behind the sentence, the insecurity behind the confidence, the longing behind the smile. To understand people better than they understand themselves is not a trick, it's a discipline. It's the quiet art of seeing the patterns they don't even know they're repeating. Arsène Lupin treated human psychology like a lock, each person a puzzle waiting to be opened. He didn't overpower people, he understood them. He watched what lit their eyes, what tightened their jaw, what unsettled their breathing. He noticed the stories they told to impress others, and the truths they were trying so desperately to hide. Because once you know what drives someone, their need for approval, their fear of abandonment, their obsession with status, you can predict their choices before they make them. And prediction is a form of power. Most people don't question their own motives. They act out of habit, emotion, or old wounds. They think they're making rational decisions, but they're simply following internal scripts they've never examined. When you can see those scripts, you can influence outcomes with almost no effort. A single phrase can sway them. A small gesture can calm them. A well-placed silence can unravel them. This isn't manipulation, it's awareness. It's understanding that humans are creatures of pattern, and whoever recognizes those patterns first shapes the direction of the interaction. To understand people deeply is to walk through the world with a hidden advantage, navigating conversations, conflicts, and opportunities with a clarity most never achieve. There is a quiet freedom that comes the moment you stop needing the world to clap for you. Most people live as performers, constantly adjusting their words, their actions, even their identities, just to gain approval from an audience that isn't paying attention. They fear being disliked, judged, or misunderstood. But the dangerously smart know that validation is a leash, soft, subtle, but powerful enough to pull you away from who you truly are. The moment you detach from it, your choices sharpen, your confidence strengthens, and your direction becomes unmistakably your own. Arsène Lupin never asked permission to exist as himself. He didn't wait for applause to make a move, and he didn't need someone's approval to justify his brilliance. He acted from conviction, from clarity, from the understanding that the world respects those who don't beg for respect. When you detach from validation, you stop performing and start deciding. You stop hesitating and start acting. Every step becomes intentional, not shaped by fear or expectation, but by purpose. Most people crumble when criticized, glow only when praised, and shift their identity depending on who is watching. But when you no longer rely on external voices to define your worth, you become unpredictable, you become self-directed. You become someone whose ambition cannot be manipulated because it no longer depends on applause. Detachment doesn't make you cold, it makes you steady. It frees your mind to focus on strategy instead of approval, progress instead of perception, authenticity instead of performance. And in a world where so many chase acceptance, the one who walks alone by choice becomes the one everyone quietly follows. In a world overflowing with noise, distraction, and illusion, these 8 ruthless lessons form a kind of hidden armor, sharp, elegant, and invisible to the untrained eye. Observation gives you vision. Emotional control gives you steadiness. Thinking ahead gives you leverage. Silence becomes your shield. Mystery becomes your strategy. And weakness becomes your disguise. You learn to read people with clarity. They don't possess themselves. And you release the need for anyone's approval. These are not just tactics. They are transformations. They reshape how you move, how you think, how you influence the world around you. And once you begin applying them, you stop living reactively and start living intentionally, stepping into every room, not as someone hoping to be understood, but as someone impossible to ignore.